All right. Hello, everyone. This is the Open Mainframe Project stream. This session, like all the others, is being recorded today. Please remember to submit your session feedback at the end. This is session 4.0. And today we have Joe Winchester, who's going to present the top 5 open source power-ups no mainframer should be without. So welcome, Joe, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody that joined. I'm so pleased. I was expecting it to just be me sort of talking to myself, which is how sort of most of my days go. So hi and welcome. So you're all muted, and your cameras are all switched off, but Donna and I think somebody else on the call have superpowers. So because they can unmute you, and there is a little chat thing. So I want to make this as interactive as possible. So if anybody want to unmute yourself or yeah, anyway, you can ask a question in there and then we can have a little bit of a dialogue. So I have a rough idea in my mind of how we're going to spend the next 45 minutes together. But if we do something completely different and I end up really upset because it's not what I wanted, but it's what you wanted, that's a good result, actually, because it's not about me, it's all about you. So this is a session that I've done a couple of times before, and I always modify it each time I do it because I learn something new, because people who attend it tell me, something like, Joe, you suck, which I already knew, but it's always nice to hear again. Or B, you suck because you missed out this amazing tool that makes my life awesome as a mainframer, or this is something brilliant that I'm working on and I would like you to give more airtime to, or I would like you to help get some collaborators to work with me in the open source community to make this even better and even more welcoming. So throw all of those darts and rocks and flaming arrows at me, and I'll turn them into sort of beautiful unicorns for next time around, if I ever get asked back to present. Okay, cool. Let's do this. So every mainframer should have these. So these are all weird emoji thingies from gaming. So some of you might recognize these or not, or some of you might just think I'm a sort of nerd and start flaming me on Discord channels, all of which are good to do. So let's look at the first one. So the first tool I'm going to talk about is a tool called ZTI. That's not called zit, like the things that grow in your head when you're a teenager or afterwards, and ZTI. Now, one of the things that you need to be able to do when you're a mainframer is basically log into a 3270 emulator. It doesn't matter how long you put it off for, but you will eventually have to be able to do that. So I'm very quickly going to minimize this, and I'm going to go all demo-y, first of all. And I'm going to show you how it works first, then I'm going to show you a little bit about how to get it. Okay, so the traditional way that most people log into a mainframe is they download. I'm just going to see if I can do this. It's going to be annoying. So you download a 3270 emulator and you install it. I'm running Mac OS. You could be running Windows, Linux, whatever you want. Raspberry Pi. So I've got an emulator. My emulator happens to be called Mocha TN3270. I personally like it. It's pretty good. I think it costs about 20 bucks or something to get. Anyway, there are some other really good ones out there. Quite a lot of free. If you work for a company, you're probably told to use one because that company has a corporate license anyway. But what you can see is I have a desktop application running, and that's okay to have a desktop application running. But this thing I'm going to tell you about is called ZTI. So this is my terminal on my MacBook. So if you're a Windows user, it would be your command.exe, and I'm going to type the word ZTI. And what ZTI is a package, it's a Python package, and I'll show you a little bit about how to install it. So for me to connect to this mainframe here, I have an IP address. I'll probably get in trouble because these are internal IP addresses. Anyway, there's my IP address. So I'm just going to copy that IP address. That's the IP address that my TN3270 is running on. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to type the word ZTI, and I'm going to type a user ID and an IP address that I'm going to log on to. Actually, I don't need, let me get the user ID up. I'm just going to type ZTI and then the user ID. Okay. And it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Sorry. I know why it didn't work. So because I entered ZTI. So if I type ZTI without a user ID, without a host name, it takes me straight to that host name. If I was in the ZTI Python program, I would type host and then the host name. So what you'll see now, and I want you to look very closely just to make sure you don't understand. I don't want to do any magic tricks on you and make you think I'm pulling the wool over your eyes. Except now I've lost my other terminal I wanted to show you. This is a 3270 emulator inside a client application that's running in a shell and a trim, and I can move it and minimize it and stuff like that. This is the same, but you'll notice something different about it. It's still running inside my my terminal, right? So this is my terminal. Now I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to use it, right? I'm going to do like MVS 3B TSO, and I'm going to log on to it, and I'm going to actually do something. Now this is all good stuff. You're like, oh, my password's not authorized. Sorry, I was switching systems. I might just drag that off my screen. I want to look at my 1Password vault and snuff all my passwords. I'm just going to log on to it anyway. So, this is actually a real live running system. So I can do cool stuff if I wanted to. I can go into ISPF 3.4 and do whatever I want to do. But at any given point in time, I'm just going to hit the escape key. So you can't see me doing this, but here's my left finger when it's going down onto my keyboard, bring me onto my escape key. I'm now back in my shell. I'm in my shell terminal. I'm actually having an interactive session with my 3270. So now I can type the word help. And I can see a bunch of commands. And those commands tell me things that I can do. So I can do a set, I can do a show, I can do a source and trace, discard and things like that. I'm having effectively a client-server handshake between a 3270 emulator session and my terminal on my MacBook, right? So I'm just going to go out to my slides quickly before I do a bit more demo to make sure to sort of so why I think that's so amazing. And I'm just gonna.
Yeah. Joe, there's a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Is that ZTI session still TLS 1.2 encrypted?
Yes. Excellent question. Thank you very much. Yes. So the TLS can support two different protocols. It can support Telnet, which is generally on port 23 and is not encrypted. But this particular port that I'm connecting to, it's a very, very good question, is running on port 992, which is typically the port that most mainframe sites configure to basically encrypt that 3270 transport over a certificate using TLS 1.2 or 1.3 or however you want to do your certificate. Excellent question. And that actually, interesting, leads me up to the next slide, which is depending on whether it's Telnet or depending on whether it's TLS, there is one little trick you have to do. Wow. Whoever got that question, if you ever meet me in a bar or a coffee shop, I will buy you a drink because that's an excellent question. So let me go back. So a little bit about getting started. Another thing I always like to show, I gave a session once to somebody, an audience, and I thought it was really good. And somebody came up to me at the end and he said, "You just showed a bunch of fish. Teach people how to fish." So I'm going to teach you how to fish, first of all. So medium.com/theropod. Let me see if I can type it, is how I found out about this. One of the reasons I found out about this is because I'm actually an editor of this website, little self-promotion plug. Theropod, for those of you that aren't kind of anthropologist nerds like myself, dinosaurs never died at the end of the Jurassic period when a giant meteor struck the Gulf of Mexico 66 million years ago and wiped out most of the dinosaurs on Earth. Alternative theories exist to do with space lasers and various things like that, but forget all of those. One particular species of dinosaur called a theropod, which was airborne at the time, evolved into birds. Birds are the direct descendant of theropods. So there's a little nerdy thing of a theropod. Anyway, let's go to this is your new favorite blog site. Lots of very, very cool things in open source going on this blog site, and including ZTI. And I think if I just do Control F and scan for it, we might find it. Maybe it's scrolled off the bottom, ZTI, but it just shows how much more amazing stuff is going on. So on the ZTI blog, which is here, and I'm going to hit play on the video. Let me go how I found out about this. Oh, 3270 is terminal. That's why it didn't work for me. So so let me type the word 3270. 3270 is terminal. Lots of really cool things. Yeah, here we are. We can see Neil's blog about ZTI. So this tells you how, and by the way, in the charts, if you download the charts, get them, whatever way you want, ping me afterwards. throw a rock at me on LinkedIn or whatever, you can find me. It goes through all the steps about how to install this. Okay, so boom, yeah. So that's what I just showed you. But I did it in a demo, so I don't need to play that video because that was only if it crashed. But the interesting thing is, let's go to that repository, github.com.ibmtnz, which I'm pretty sure there is a link to in here. Where is his package? Sorry about this. Get started with examples. Yeah, here we are. So this is github.com/ibm. So this is actually Python. And one of the kind of cool things about this is if I just go to TNZ, you can see all of the samples that TNZ has got, all of the source code for it. It's all open source code. Because it's a Python script, if you have a look at this, and this is a particular one, what we've got here is what you saw me do was type ZTI and then the host name and then connect and just do a bunch of stuff. But what you can do is this is a programmatic way to drive that 3270 from TNZ.ditto, import ATI, set trace all, set session, enter, password, verify that you've got the ICH message to log on, verify. So what you do is you've got a client server conversation here where you're shuttling back and forth and you're driving that 3270 session. Think of all the possibilities that you can do for testing, all sorts of clever things for scripting. You saw me just log in and type a bunch of manual commands. I could have written a Python script to basically log in and go and then just drive 500 panels down into somewhere where I wanted to be. Lots and lots of possibilities for what I can do. I could have got that information back. I could have fronted it with various things. This piece of software, by the way, was open sourced by an engineer in IBM because it's the same piece of software that this engineer wrote when they were working for IBM, because they were doing the automated testing for the hundreds and hundreds of ISPF panels that IBM ships when it ships a ZOS release. And this particular engineer was just like, well, I'm bored. I want to write the Python program to automate it for me. And this is basically that. So this is your new best friend. I'm going very quickly. I've got 5 things to do, so I'll just get to the end. The excellent question about the encrypt protocol. So there is an environment variable. In Windows, it's called session_SSL. In Linux, Mac, it's called ZTI sec level. Lots of great documentation in that article, so I want you to go and read that. But it is the most important thing to know, the security. So if session SSL, and I've forgotten which the default is, session SSL is 0, then it will assume that it's TLS and it will assume it's 992. If it's TLS and it's not 992, you can also set the port independently. And if you set session SSL equals 1, then it's kind of the opposite to what you would expect, because I'm just in my mind thinking 0 is false and 1 is true. Then it basically is telnet and it defaults to 23. So you need to set that environment variable. And very quickly, just to show you, if you get it wrong, because I do this myself, if I go ZTI, and I'm just now going to connect to the wrong one, I have a valid session called tvt5009.pok.stglabs.ibm.com. And log on to that in a second. You get a bunch of Python goop. So if you ever see this Python goop appearing, you've basically got the wrong protocol handshake going on. So excellent question. And I think I actually have a chart showing all of that. So I'm going to play this chart, little video. And yeah, you saw me go on my Python goop here. And let's go and see what happens. Export ZTI sec level equals 1. So I've set it to be TLS because it was defaulting to SSL. I'm echoing it. So I'm using my $sign to just do, and then when I do ZTI back, you saw there I did a slightly different thing. I did ZTI and then I did go to, which is what I should have done at the start of this presentation. So once I'm in ZTI, I can just do go to and pick one session and another. One of the very cool things about ZTI is you can do go to. You can actually be connected to multiple hosts at once and you can get data. So this is your new best friend. Cool. Let me move on from sake of time. When did we start, Donna? We started at 11:15, yeah? Donna's taken a power
Yes.
snooze.
No, I was muted. Yes, we started at 11:15.
Okay, so that is my new. So hopefully, the next one I want to show you is I have a t-shirt. I work on a project called Zoe. I've got lots of silly t-shirts behind me. So I'm just going to show you Zoe. The reason I'm going to show you Zoe is because then eventually I'm going to show you Z Open Tools. So the other thing is Visual Studio Code. I expect by now, because we get that if anybody doesn't know what Zoe is, that we've got lots of sessions about it. It's an open source project that I've fortunate enough I've worked on it ever since before it was called Zoe. So if anybody wants to meet me in a bar, buy me a drink, I'll tell you lots of something. But Visual Studio Code is a really cool IDE that was created by Microsoft. That's most of it's open sourced as well. Has a lots of extensions. It's kind of created by the same team that built Eclipse years ago when they worked back at IBM. So it's very similar to Eclipse, but it's written in TypeScript. So it's just a bit more. It's got a lot of the errors that Eclipse had. It doesn't have. Also, good, it's TypeScript. It actually has lots of more potential to do things like run in browsers and things like that. There's a marketplace of thousands, tens of thousands of extensions. And there's one called Zoe Explorer. You click a button, you install it, and I'm going to quickly show you what Zoe Explorer does. So Zoe Explorer fundamentally has three different sort of displays for it. Effectively, this is your kind of ISP of 3.4, your 3.17, and your kind of STSF, or you could have other vendor products as like EJS from Phoenix Software International that you could be using instead of STSF, or you could be using SysView from Broadcom or things like that. So very quickly, there are a few real nuggets and of tips. The thing that I like best about this, apart from the fact it's pretty good for just doing point and shoot. So I can just do, point and shoot, and I can just, do high-level qualifiers, so I'm just going to do a quick new one. Range data. I'm just going to, I could do a whole hour on this, or I could probably do longer than that. But I'm going to show you my favorite things about the Zoe Explorer. So I'm connected to one system, which actually, ironically, it's the same system I was connected to just now with CTI. I'm going to connect to a different system here. See if it works. It'll probably crash on me. Oh, that's a bit silly. I mean, I don't have any data sets under that user ID. Let me see if I've got any under this user ID. Yeah, okay. So I'm connected to two completely different heterogeneous systems, two different network stacks, IP. They don't even have to be running on the same sysplex. And one of the things I'm quickly going to do for you is I'm going to take a piece of JCL, I'm going to open it, I'm going to copy it. So that's Control C and put it in my clipboard. I should have done this demo a bit better. I'm just, for whatever reason, I'm going to go create new member, and I'm going to call it GS copy. So we're not called GSE UK anymore, we're called GS. I'm going to whack it in here, I'm going to paste it. So that's just me, Control C. The reason I'm doing that is going to change one of them. I'm going to put the word different. Actually, I'm not going to spell it more than 8 letters. Otherwise, I'm going to get lots of hate mail about the fact it can only be 8 letters long. Okay, different. Okay, I'm now going to imagine. So I'm now going to shut these two down. I can open this. I can go select for compare. I can open this one, and I can say compare with selected. What I've gone and done there is I've gone and, well, you also what I did, but I'll just explain it to you. I've gone and selected two completely different PDS members across two completely different mainframes that have no physical topological, sysplex relationship to each other. And I've opened a compare browser, and you can quite clearly see the line that's different. And if I click, I forgot which one it is anyway. One of these is going to swap it and resolve it. And anyway, you can fix it all up. This is your new best friend. If you're sysprog and you're deploying software to different environments, this compare facility is wickedly cool. Okay, so this is, for me, the kind of killer feature. I have another killer feature I do want to show about this that I really do like using a lot. Let me see if I can quickly go into this system. I'm looking at jobs now. This is very similar to the pre-owner, I've forgotten what the other one is called, status. Anyway, so I'm just going to search for all jobs on the system. I'm just going to do star. So there's lots of jobs, and I'm going to find a job, and I'm going to find probably, let me go and look at that. That's actually a Zoe job. Zoe started task. Okay, this is quite a big job. Zoe's very chatty. I was probably started this with debug options. So what I like about this is that I can scroll down and I can scroll sideways, right? I don't have to be using PF10, PF11, whatever. And find, you can do find in SDSF, but find is really good in here. So I'm going to Control F. I spend a lot too much of my time looking at error logs, and sometimes I'm looking for a particular message. So I know I have a message called ZWE AM 0 0 anyway 000I, and I can see a particular message. It occurs 7 times in this huge log. I hit the down arrow and I can just scrim through it. This is all simple stuff. Any of us that have used, you know, Word or anything like that know how to do find. The other cute thing about Visual Studio Code find is if I search for the word, I don't know, critical or something like that, maybe that was a bad one. Let me do warning. If you go and look at the right-hand side, again, that was a bad one because they're all together. Okay, let me do one more ZWEAM. Look at the right-hand side and see if I can make it a little bit bigger. There's a kind of these kind of strange little marky things there. So that you can see it's kind of the frequency of occurrence of them in the log. So I can hit that one and it just takes me straight down to here. So that can be quite interesting. So for example, if I'm looking for something that's occurring, I can see, oh, that gets written here. So you have this kind of frequency distribution of where it's occurring. So sometimes you do stuff and you can see, oh, there's loads of messages, but they're early on. That's not that interesting. I'm actually interested in that particular message, you know, close to the bottom of a log. So a good example of that, and I use this quite a lot, is I'm going to go and, so on this particular system, I can actually go and look at the sys log because I have permission to look at the sys log. So for particular, if I go in, you know, I've got TLS, so let me look at winch.j. So I can see winch.j and I go, okay, I've got winch.j did some stuff early on in the sys log. I'm not that interested in what winch.j did then. I'm interested in what winch.j did here at the end, because this is chronological and I can go straight to the end and I can go to the left and I should be able to see what winch.j was doing at the end, which is basically just me logging on because I just logged onto this about 10 minutes ago. Cool. So those are my two. Lots of amazing other things you can do with Zoe. Zoe is open source. Zoe is open source under the Open Mainframe project, which is part of the Linux Foundation, which is okay. Cool. That's my second one.
Joe, another question. Is there anything like the equivalent to the exclude command in ISPF to remove lines I'm not interested in?
Okay, great question. So what you're talking about there is you're talking about the ability to look at a huge log and to basically, so I always get asked this question by people who run ISPF. The answer is yes, I just don't know what it is because I've seen it occurring. The way you probably want to do this is go into because it's Visual Studio Code, in Visual Studio Code, that capability exists. Yes. Therefore, because it exists in Visual Studio Code, it will exist in the Zoe Explorer because it's just a Visual Studio Code editor. Great question. I will find the answer for you. And I will also promise you, I'll write a blog on this actually, because you're not the first person to have asked that question, but cool. There are other clever things I've seen people do as well, where they do clever things where they want to, anyway, there are very clever things, which is basically what you're asking is, if I'm an ISPF power user, how can I become a Zoe Explorer power user and bring those power ups across? Great question. I'm sorry I don't have the answer prepared for it, but there is a way. Cool. Excellent question. Thank you so very much for that question. Okay, cool. The next piece of thing I want to show you, this is all basically everything I showed you. There's a little embedded video. Oh, sorry. One other thing as well. I do need to do I'm still screen sharing, aren't I, Donna, or not?
Yes, you are.
Oh yeah, sorry. Anyway, I just sort of lost track of where I was. This is IntelliJ. So open source should not be prescriptive. Open source should be fish where the fish is swimming. Lots of people, lots of Java people, Kotlin people love IntelliJ. So this is IntelliJ IDE, and what I've got really quickly here is I am basically it's also part of Zoe, and you can see I'm editing JCL and things like that. So if you don't like Visual Studio Code, I'm not going to force Visual Studio Code down your throat. You can use IntelliJ, and the same extension works with PyCharm and other things like that. And lots of data scientists use PyCharm and Python as well. So the IntelliJ IDE is also available on under Zoe. It's part of core Zoe ever since last December, I think, or something like that. So that's really very, very cool. And I start to use IntelliJ IDE more, especially when I'm working with Java. IntelliJ is just a little bit, just a little bit crisper about how you can sort of debug Java and launch Java. And the capabilities are very, very, very similar. Most of what you would expect is already here as well. And to answer that question about can I do sort of clever things with excluding lines and stuff, I didn't even know if I can do this in IntelliJ. But then because it's IntelliJ, because you're hybridizing the mainframe with this wonderful other open source community, there will be plugins, there will be extensions, there will be blogs written by IntelliJ smart people, of which I'm not one. So there will be ways because somebody else will have figured it all out. Great question. I'm looking at the time because I'm running out of time. A few other quick things. The other one, hopefully most of you know about this by now, and if you don't, it is your absolute new best friend. Is called Z Open Tools. So Z Open Tools is where one of the problems. There's a lots of other great open source out there, and it was actually Mike Fulton, I think, and Igor Todorevsky. I think he's given other talks in this GS UK track. What they realized a while back was when you log into the mainframe, one of the problems you have is you SSH your way into the shell, and it's just basically really sucky. It's this kind of sort of version of like the Bourne shell from about 1990 something like that. It's just old. And when you log into other Unix environments, you have masses and masses of other tools there. But what basically Mike and Igor basically said was, let's close this gap. So they created a project called ZOS Open Tools. The ZOS Open Tools is now, and first of all, let me show you, how am I doing for time? Don, I started 11:15, yeah? So I've got till midday.
You have 19 minutes, Joe.
19 minutes, okay. So I'll show you a little bit about what it does, and then I'll show you a bit more about it. So I'm just going to close this session, and I'm going to go back to here. So what I've got here is, let me just go back, and I'll make it a little bit larger. So, boom, yeah. So let me just,
So
okay.
Steve Dewan is asking the question, of course, these IDEs open a new attack vector into the mainframe, so you should be careful about what plugins/extensions you download and execute. Guess that's not a question, it's more of a statement.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good statement. So I spend quite a lot of time talking to customers who are sort of concerned about security. So we can have a longer discussion about that, and that might even need to be a whole session in itself. So there are multiple ways. Yes, every way. If you live in a house with no doors and windows and no chimney, nobody's going to attack you, but you're also not going to have a great life. So you need to have a way to interact with the outside world. Yes, it opened, and so every time you do need to do that, you need to make sure you've got a lock, and you need to make sure that everybody who knows how to unlock that, everybody who has the key is people that you trust, and so on and so forth. So there are ways to address all of these. Probably our biggest one right now is I always encourage customers to look at every time a user ID and a password is entered. How does that user remember what that user ID and the password is? So within the Zoe Explorer, which I just showed, our basic implementation is that the user ID and the password is stored because it's flowed on every single request. It's what's called a REST, representational static request. It's stored securely on your laptop, but it's not so secure that somebody really clever or somebody with elevated privileges in the laptop couldn't get it. It would be a lot of work. So what we tend to always encourage people to do is use X509 client certificates or smart cards or things like that, or multi-factor authentication or token-based authentication, or more things where it's basically harder and it's more secure for people to do. And especially X509 client-side certificates are basically the ones that most customers are doing too. And there is your new favorite blog, medium.com/Zoe. There is an article written by me called Zoe CLI and Client Certificates that basically, so if anybody wants to go to medium.com/Zoe, and I talk a little bit about the theft of passwords, and about how to basically go from this person, the sysprog, the hairy scary sysprog saying thou shalt not pass, thou shalt not install open source in my organization, saying, you've got a user ID and password, who then goes, okay, great, now you've got a client-side certificate. And I talk all about how to do this, and it works for, and I've got commands for rackf, and I've also got, because I worked with some beautiful people at Broadcom, they gave me the commands for ACF2 and top secret as well. So all of the commands, end-to-end commands. But I'd love to have your feedback on that. There are other attack vectors as well, because the other possibility, if it's open source and you just download open source, that you don't really know who the last person who committed it, because they might just log the password and then email it to them in, some rogue state or something like that. So Zoe itself is delivered through software vendors as well, like Broadcom, Rocket, and IBM also deliver you distributions of Zoe where they underwrite that, and then they run source code scanning as well. And that's the same with any open source as well. Like if you're running ZOSMF is using Java. Java is open source. The reason you trust ZOSMF is because you got it as part of ZOS because it came from the operating system. So you sort of trust a relationship with that person that gave you that, right? You trust when you go into a kitchen, you trust that they haven't poisoned you, because the chef could have poisoned you because they could have used out-of-date ingredients. But you don't go and look at the sell-by date on everything that they've got in their kitchen. You trust that that restaurant has done that for you. Okay, cool. Yeah, great questions. So let me go back to ZOS Open Tools. So I sort of might do, let me go back to my terminal. So, and it ran out. Oh, but just timed out, I think. Look at that, great question. So what you'll see is when I logged on, you'll see there's Vim. So I'm going to type Vim. So Vim is an editor that is a ported editor. Now, I know VI already exists, but Vim is a ported editor. So let me just quickly do, if I go into Visual Studio Code, if I go into look at Unix System Services, I think that's the same system. Yeah, TVT 5009/U IBM user. Gosh, let me go. No, actually, I don't need to demo this too much, but you can basically see what's going on here. The GS UK CDGS. Okay, so bash, right? If I do ls, for example, one of the things that I really don't like about the mainframe shell is it doesn't have bash. I've got bash installed. So what that means now is if I type cd and then I type, okay, let me type cat and then I type t. Sorry. This demo's just broken on me, sorry. Sorry, the demo broke on me. I don't know why it broke on me. What I wanted to show you was that I had bash installed, and I think it's because I uninstalled bash, and I was going to show you what it would be for me to install bash, but I don't know if I've got enough time to install bash. So this is some data. Wow, the demo gods have struck me down today. I'm trying to work out, who did I piss off? I think it was because I said something about attack vectors and I tried to defend Zoe. So angering the mainframe sort of security sys gods, they have a direct line to the demo gods who just say like, let's just poke Joe with a piece of, it's this queue, isn't it, for saving? Ooh. Yeah, so it's absolutely balked on me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end that session and I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. Okay, so let's look at ZOS Open Tools. Z Open Tools is basically, you install it. There's an installer, there's a website. Actually, I'm going to go back to the ZOS Open Tools. So the first place I want to go to is github.com Z Open Community. I think this is Z Open Community. So Z Open Community is part of the Open Mainframe project, and they have, they have managed to port 234 tools, which is phenomenal. And there's everything in there, from Vim to NeoVim. There's curl, which is excellent because curl doesn't run on the mainframe by default. They've got Open SSL, which is great if you're doing anything with certificates and futzing around with certificates. They've got bash, which I tried to show you just now, but it balked on me. They've got Vim. There's 234 tools that they've ported across. Okay. And if you go into the other thing I really like about the Z Open community tools is as well, and I'll just very quickly show you, for the folks who don't know, 79s.com. Hey, Donna, another question.
10-minute warning.
10-minute warning. Thank you so much. 79s.com, which is a new favorite website. 79s.com is run by lots of really amazing people, Stephen Perver, and there's lots of other people that sort of moderate the community behind that. They have a Discord channel, and that's called Systems Z Enthusiasts. It's very, very good. And on the Discord channel, I'll just very quickly go into it. They have a special Discord community. They have a special channel. I'm trying to get the words right. And there's lots of great people here. And you'll actually see like Mike Fulton is right here. He's the kind of sort of father of all of this. And you see Igor as well, and lots of other amazing people. So if you ever want to find out more about this, that's probably a really great place to start. And then I've got links as well to the websites. I'm going to go back because I'm running out of time here. You have to futz around with your default profile to get your BPX environment correct. But then once you do, one of the reasons that I like Vim is that sometimes I work with customers who are editing YAML, and I often say to them, they often make mistakes because they've got a bit of their YAML commented out, or they haven't got it quite formatted quite right. And I'll see, yeah, when you're editing YAML in Vim, it's much better than VI or ISPF 3.17 or something, because you can actually see things and you can actually line up. So I actually sometimes there are customers who say, well, I can't use Zoe Explorer, VS Code, I can't use IntelliJ to edit YAML or XML. And I'll be like, and VI sucks. So we all agree on that. So let's use Vim, and they can basically install Vim. Okay. Sorry, I really did a disservice to Z Open Tools, because it is basically, I'll show you what Bash does. What I tried to show you there was, if you can do autocomplete. So I type CD and V, and then I just hit the tab key, and it knows, well, I've only got one thing called var. So whenever you're doing autocomplete in CD or cat or ls or anywhere like that, or anywhere it wants a file name or directory name, you start typing the first few characters and you hit the tab key and it autocompletes. And I'm really sorry, I don't know why it didn't work for me just now, because I did test this earlier. But Bash is really good. 9 of those tools are supported by IBM. So if anybody's worried, there was a question about attack vectors, about having 234 open source tools just installed in your USS environment. 9 of them, the most popular, and probably, I think it's Bash, I think it's curl, I think it's Vim. They're supported by something. They're supported as part of ZOS. And Igor Todoyevsky has more information about that, or just ask a question in the Discord channel as what those 9 tools are. And I think OpenSSL is one of them. It's the 9 tools that you're most likely to use. Okay, another one that I like to show, which is most people know about this, and it's not open source. Let me just SSH my way in, WinMBS3B. So just trying to think. That was really stupid. See, because the demo gods have struck me down. They've made me nervous now, because I didn't put a user ID in front of that. So it's a very simple thing. It's not really open source. So, everybody's going to moan at me because I already knew about it. But in my USS environment, I've got ls, right? So I can do, well, I haven't got anything. So I can run USS commands, but I can't run MVS commands. So one of the things that I can do is TSOCMD. So TSOCMD, TSOCMD, that bad one. Time. I can run MVS commands from within my USS environment using TSOCMD. I know it's not a USS thing. It's not open source, but I love it. I think it's a power up. And I remember when I first found that, I was like, wow, that's cool. So TSO command is something that's amazing. The next one I'll very quickly talk about is the Zoe command line interface. I don't have much time to talk about the command line interface, but I'm going to very quickly show you a couple of little power-ups that I love. Zoe command line interface is all open source. So what I want to show you now is something that's really successful. So if I look at this particular piece of JCL, job control language, it's a very simple piece of JCL that's going to copy a member called what's the date today? May the 1st. Happy May Day to all of you out there. Is May the 1st May Day? May the 1st. So I'm going to very quickly see if I can run this. Actually,
5-minute warning.
thank you, Donna. I'm just going to quickly. I might just. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint because so fundamentally what I was trying to show you, if I hadn't balked earlier, was, come on, be nice. You can submit JCL. I'll just hold the pause right there. You can submit JCL from the Zoe command line interface. It's the most powerful thing that the command line interface lets you do effectively. It's your wildcard, and you can pass parameters from your client command line to be substituted into the JCL as symbols. So what that lets you do, and what I was going to demo there, was basically I submitted some JCL. This JCL has got JCL error. It won't submit. The JS just won't accept it because it's just bad. So you get a JCL error. Don't submit it. But I've got the web parameterized source. So a lot of customers who are very successful say, well, I've got some client team who wants to do some automation. So they want an API that says, do this to that, move this to that, compile that on this particular system. So they've got 5 variables. Somebody clever who's got mainframe experience writes a piece of JCL to do that, or a piece of Rex, right? Because they're playing with that, the kind of bat and ball that they grew up with, that they like to play with. And then when they create that with those arguments, perhaps including some validation on how they're parameterized, then the other team, the non-mainframe team, is able to basically execute through the Zoe command line interface to basically run that JCL. And I think or run that Rex with arguments and have that kind of client server communication. And that's phenomenal. And I've seen customers do incredible things with that, where they've got non-mainframe teams driving mainframe. And the last open source power up that nobody should ever be without is CBT tape. Most of the things I showed you there are quite sort of modern, but CBT tape is phenomenal. I don't know the provenance of it. I know Lionel Dyke, I think he's retired now, and Sam Gotha. Anyway, CBT tape is phenomenal. CBT tape is also part of the Open Mainframe project. CBT tape has got phenomenal things. So I use it a lot when I'm using USS. If I want to grow, if I want to mount, if I want to size things, if I want to do anything, it's very hard. I find all that stuff really messy and difficult, not being grown up as a mainframer. And CBT tape is basically a lifesaver if you haven't come across CBT tape. And that's about it, Donna. I think I managed to steer that in a little bit early. Is there anything that I missed, or anything that anybody wants to demo, or anything that they think is like so amazing? I'm an idiot that I haven't come across it before.
So we have 2 minutes left. I could take a chance here and just unmute everybody and let you have a free for all.
Yeah, let's do it. What's the worst that could happen? Somebody could insult me, or
No.
Yeah, please go for it. Yeah.
All right. I am going through and clicking to.
And I'm sorry, I kind of lost my mojo a bit about 10 minutes before the end now.
Yeah.
I could try and get Bash
right,
working again if you wanted.
I'm asking people to unmute, so you might be getting a pop-up.
They're all power snoozing.
Oh no, some of them are coming off mute. Look out, here comes Jim Horn.
Hey Jim, good to see you, buddy.
Hey Joe. Quick history lesson. CBT tape was originally Connecticut Bank and Trust, and it was an actual tape that you could get from people.
So it was really like back in the day when I was a student, we used to have little cassettes, like, and we would like record it and then like share it around our university.
I think these were bigger tapes than that.
Yeah, but I get the idea.
These were like 12 inches across or something, and
yeah.
But it was quite useful even back in the day.
So CBT tape now is
if you go out there, you can see how active it really is, because there's new stuff being added all the time, and it gets flagged.
Open Mainframe project. Yeah, so we've got Lionel and Sam. Sorry, Sam was the other person I wanted to. So Jim, have you got any real nuggets in CBT tape that you've used? I mean, there's a ton of stuff, and I'm always coming across amazing things in it.
A long time ago, yeah. where I'm at now, some of our other guys have pulled some stuff down, but to be honest, I'm not even sure what we've got that's CBT and not. But it's always been chock full of good stuff.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
know that we've had discoveries where customers have come to us with support items or whatever, and we've seen like blurbs of code that we recognize as being Lionel's code from CBT tape that are being, nuggets that are being run at customer shops.
Yeah, my biggest problem lately has been trying to find what's on there. So I'm really excited to see that it's part of the open system stuff because that'll make it easier to find things.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And even though Lionel's retired, he's still quite active on the Systems E enthusiasts Discord community. Yeah.
Yeah, and Sam's been retired even longer, and he's been running CBT. He's been running the CBT tape almost since Arnie Casaglia retired, and Arnie was the original guy at Connecticut Bank and Trust who created the tape in the first place.
Awesome. Yeah, so great questions. I'd encourage you all, go to Systems E enthusiasts, say hi Lionel and ask him. I think there might even be a discussion thread there about CBT tape. If not, there should be one. Because I'm falling in love with it. The more I become less of an idiot mainframer, and the more I understand, the power of what MBS can do, the more I find that CBT tape has probably got the answer to most of my questions. Cool.
So Joe, a couple of folks in the chat who either can't or chose not to unmute.
Oh,
Rod
sorry.
Little says, great session, Joe, thanks.
Oh,
And
thanks, Rod.
Stephen M says he can't unmute, but he wants to know ZTI versus Zoe CLI. Are they the same or horses for
Was the
courses?
question ZTI?
ZTI versus Zoe CLI. Are
Zoe
they
CLI,
the
okay. They are
same?
completely different. They are completely different, but great question. So, and I'm trying to show this with a demo because I'm just kind of a demo idiot. So this is my terminal right now that I've got that you can see. So I'm going to do a Zoe CLI command. In fact, you saw me do one just now. So I can do Zoe issue console command the IPL info. And I actually did that just now because I actually don't actually know what my Zoe issue console command. Oh, because it's Zoe console issue command. Sorry. So what the Zoe CLI is all about doing is it's all about issuing commands at your fingertips. So I can do Zoe jobs, list jobs. It's basically having a client server communication, and I can do other things as well. I can submit jobs, and I'm just going to type the word Zoe and see everything I can do. I can massively manipulate in a very client server way my mainframe. And what people do with the Zoe command line interface is they sorry about this. Come on, be nice to me. Well, it won't be nice to me. Open command line interface, where are we at Zoe? I gave a session on Zoe yesterday. What people do with Zoe is they tend to script. So this is a shell script that I could run on my laptop, or I could run it in an automation pipeline like Jenkins or some sort of client distributed server, distributed machine. It's not a mainframe. And I can basically do things like list data sets and create data sets and get it to do stuff and move files around and do commands. But 90% of my work is going to be running off the mainframe in that engine. So what people do with the Zoe command line interface is they build pipelines. So this is a DevOps pipeline that a customer had, and they were using lots of distributed tools, bits of Jenkins and SonarQube and Artifactory, moving and shuttling and building things around. And some part of that needed to be able to do mainframe compiles, move things, move test data, look at logs, download logs, do that analysis. So the command line interface, it's just sort of peek and poke. It's just kind of handshaking to say, mainframe, do something, mainframe, do. ZTI is different. ZTI is basically a facade pattern, a front end on a 3270 emulator. So ZTI will start a 3270 session behind you and basically be a sort of bot, so that rather than a user typing in a bunch of stuff, it will do that for you. and you can automate that if you want to. But it's fronting a 3270 session. The Zoe CLI is fronting a REST API that can be Kix or MQ, or it can be ZOSMF, or it can be, so you're not going through 3270. And those REST API catalogs are vast and huge. And it talks to like 50 different vendor products, including EJS from Phoenix Software International, that has a plugin for it as well. And none of that is going through a 3270 protocol. Sorry, was that a little cheer from the
There was a little cheer. Woohoo! Thanks.
little cheer from the Chief Marketing Officer of Phoenix Software International, who got up at like stupid o'clock this morning. So thank you very much. But great question. So I hope you got that right. So one of them is a facade pattern on a 3270 emulator where you can basically bot it, for want of a better word. The other one has nothing to do with 3270 whatsoever. And it's basically creating a nice command-driven interface on the squillions of REST APIs that all of the vendors and the platform and the subsystem surface. And that's the Zoe command line interface. And it's kind of homogenizing those all around, basically a pretty way to just, type and have fingerprints and things like that. And the Zoe CLI as well also supports lots more different authentication protocols. ZTI, you have to type in your user ID and password, because you just do.
Okay, so we're about 6 minutes over. Does anyone have any final questions for Joe before we end so that folks can get to the next sessions?
Or they can get their morning coffee in my case. Yeah.
Oh, that too. Okay, I see nothing popping up in the chat.
Thanks so much. Please do stay involved. Open source is beautiful. I love open source and I love the mainframe, and the two worlds come together. And yeah, just use whatever way you can. And open source is not just about reading something and then raising tickets and expecting somebody else to fix it. It should really be, and I don't want to end up getting on a political note, but we should all be more involved in our communities, to make sure that the world we live in is the world that we want to be a part of, or we want our children to inherit. So if we want open source to do something, everybody I know who is a creator in open source is some of the most beautiful, welcoming, kind people on the planet. And they want other people with ideas and maybe even some keyboard action to basically step over and start helping, make it more beautiful and make it more wonderful. Woo! Go me. Joe for
Go
president.
you. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to remind everyone to fill out your session feedbacks forms. This is session 4.0, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
All right, later. Stay safe. Cheers.